Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. The crypto market is down again today, but many analysts are arguing that this is the final shakeout. And I'll tell you this right at the outset of the video, I'm going to share with you perspective from a number of XRP chart analysts, and none of them feel shaken about what's happening today. They all believe that the best is yet ahead. In terms of chart structure, nothing has broken, nothing is occurring that should make us feel really alarmed. It's just sometimes you're going to have down days, but on the whole, this thing's going to keep trending higher and higher until we finally hit a euphoric blow-off top, which does happen every single cycle. I don't believe for a moment this will be the first time in history where a market peaks without typical lemming retail speculators being ridiculously overly confident. We haven't gotten there yet. And we haven't seen XRP enter the face melting phase of price discovery. Can you imagine this thing's been consolidating from the better part of a decade, and it just teases the all-time high a few times this year, and that's it for the cycle? I do not find that to be remotely probable. XRP continues to show ridiculous strength. And historically, you do get a final burst. Every single market cycle this has happened for XRP. What this time's different? Famous last words, my friend. I don't think so. But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. As I record this video, it is 6:50 p.m. Central Time, Thursday, October 9th, 2025. XRP is down to $2.80. Bitcoin's down to 121,778 bucks. Look, this, frankly, as far as I'm concerned, this is not alarming. Like, just coming from a guy who's been in crypto since late 2017 and has been through every up and down since, never sold a single XRP in his entire life, just coming from that perspective, it does not make logical sense to be fearful here. I understand that this induces fear in market participants. It doesn't make logical sense, though. This is what crypto does. You should come to expect that crypto is going to do crypto stuff, which it's been showing you it's going to do for the last 16 years it's existed. So when normal price action occurs, and sometimes it's to the downside, it doesn't make logical sense to be freaking out here. I'll tell you who's not freaking out, though, is the Nijin Tropic account. And this account is run by the co-founders of Glassnode and Swissblock. And just this late morning, they said, "This is the last volatility-driven shakeout. Once done, we are clear for new all-time high. Alt recovery starts next week, leading into an alt season in November." Okay, that's an opinion, but the opinion is based on actual data. I mean, these are Swissblock and Glassnode. They're fantastic on-chain analytics firms. I mean, there's a reason that they are so widely respected and followed in the world of crypto. So I think it's a pretty reasonable conclusion they're coming to. And yeah, it's true that no analyst can consistently accurately predict exactly when a chart's going to start ramping to the upside. Nobody can accurately predict time. But history does tend to rhyme with itself, which is why it's not crazy to think, based on various metrics and various historic charts, that sooner rather than later, we actually are going to see a tremendous move to the upside. It's not crazy to speculate on that. Here's a post from Ryan Dietrich. He's a chief market strategist at Carson Group. And he says, "Crazy eights? The current bull market is up 88.8%. And I'll note that he's talking about the S&P 500 right now. So stocks going back to 1950 to where we are now. He says, so again, the market is up 88.8% since the lows in October 2022. Yes, this one is 3 years old soon, but remember that the average bull lasts more than 5 years and gains close to 200%. And you can see what he's talking about here over that time period. Look at that, close to 200%. And that again, that's for traditional finance. That's for the S&P 500. Crypto goes way more bananas than that, obviously. But look, this post supports the idea that the length of the bull market in crypto is lengthening due to debt refinancing now occurring every 5 years instead of every 4 years, as Raoul Pal has been arguing. Of course, he's the founder and CEO of Real Vision and Global Macro Investor. Raoul Pal is the reason that I became aware of the importance of tracking the correlation between global M2 and Bitcoin. There's no end-all be-all metric when it comes to expectations in crypto, but that's as close as you're going to get to it, frankly. I mean, that in business cycle. But this also explains why the business cycle metric does not look like it's anywhere near a peak. It just doesn't. So that said, even if the bull market in equities goes on another 2 years, which is the average here, even if it goes on another 2 years, it doesn't mean that the bull run for crypto can't peak sooner than that. So it's true that the strong majority of the time you see a correlation, certainly directionally, between the S&P 500 and what's happening in crypto, but there's a certain percentage of time where that's not the case, and where you're going to see that divergence a lot of the time is actually right when you're getting to those peaks where you see Bitcoin and the crypto asset class, especially in that final euphoric rally, just rocket to the upside. You will get divergences there, and then obviously after that you'd see that, since that would be the peak, you'd see a dramatic crash afterwards. So of course you can go back throughout history and find those moments, but this kind of does support that idea that perhaps this could go into 2026. And I'm not making a prediction on whether or not that does or doesn't happen. Maybe we do peak in Q4 of 2025. I'm not in the game of making predictions along those lines. I'm just not going to play that game. But I want to share the ideas with you. You can come to your own conclusions about what you think is probable. And none of this is crazy. Increasingly I'm seeing people play with this idea that we actually are going to see this bull run carry into 2026. So we'll find out whether or not that happens. But even if that's the case, we are still most of the way through this bull run. So history rhymes with itself, even if it's stretched out a little longer than normal for multiple reasons that I've been highlighting on this channel. We're still almost there. We're still certainly almost there. Here's a post from Altcoin Vector, also run by the same guys that do the analysis for Swissblock and Glassnode. It says, we're nearing a critical turning point for altcoins. Historically, alt season begins when the inverse correlation between alts, excluding the top 10 coins by market cap, and USDT dominance, that'd be Tether dominance, hits its tightest range right before liquidity rotates. That setup is forming again. Last year, this same divergence triggered the alt season. And folks, there's no one organization that gets to define what an alt season is, so some people will dispute whether or not what happened beginning in November of last year was technically an alt season. I'm not getting into that for the purposes of this video. They're just talking about, obviously, the fact that altcoins, they were rallying for that time. XRP was one of them, of course. But altcoins were rocketing before a major correction, ultimately, which came at some point in December, and most coins just started just ridiculously trending down from there. XRP was one of the strongest, actually. I mean, it was the best performer out of the top 100 since the November election, anyway. But the key takeaway here is that this divergence, which triggered that moment in November of last year, they're saying that setup is happening again. And so as Tether dominance dropped and altcoin/Bitcoin broke higher, liquidity flowed from Bitcoin to Ethereum to large caps, fueling broad rotation, they write. Right now, the divergence hasn't confirmed yet. But we are at that moment where we see a similar setup, and it would make logical sense that you would start to see that here based on historic precedent. So if indeed this is the case, you're going to see Tether dominance go down because Tether is going to be used to purchase all sorts of other stuff. It's liquidity. And then what happens? Altcoins go absolutely insane. And I still think that XRP is going to be among the top performers as a result of this. I mean, it already is. I just think that's going to persist. All right, there's a post from Credible Crypto where he was warning about a particular range for Bitcoin of $108,000 to $118,000, and apparently it spooked some people. And so Credible Crypto, just this afternoon, it was at 12 p.m. Central, he posted this. He said, folks, when I say $108,000 to $118,000, I am highlighting the zone pictured below because it is a higher time frame area of demand. However, $108,000 for Bitcoin is also the start of this local impulse, so I am not saying we will hit $108,000. I'm saying anything under $118,000 but above $108,000 is fair game, as long as we don't go below $108,000. We could literally tap $118,000 and reverse technically. So don't assume a deep correction when it could just be a few percent lower from current levels before a full-on reversal. $108,000 is our local invalidation, meaning we should not see that level if we are as bullish as expected, and I don't think we will. So, key takeaway. By the time you're watching this, yes, it's possible the market has gone a bit further down, not a guarantee. He's just saying, even if that happens, if it's in that range, you're fine. All the way down to 108K, that would be within normal parameters in his estimation. Everything's still fine. We still rally up dramatically in very short order. Nothing has changed. Here's an XRP BTC chart, also from Credible Crypto. It says, while XRP continues to chop against the USD pairing in a tight range, Bitcoin had a nice impulse off of our lows, which sent the XRP BTC pairing lower. And folks, that shouldn't be surprising. You can see that, yes, XRP fell against Bitcoin here, but that's because it was Bitcoin's time to shine. It leads the market, but XRP has still outperformed since November of last year. I mean, you can see it's off the chart here. It's not even showing the start of that impulse. So we're still sitting pretty compared to a year ago. And also, I don't think we're done. By the time XRP goes on its final rally, it's just going to continue to embarrass toxic Bitcoin maximalists who said that this wasn't going to happen. But yeah, it's true. In the short term, went down a little bit. And so he says, I am now looking for a move down to Gandalf's grave. And that's his green line. He's calling it Gandalf's grave. The historic level where Gandalf the Grey was slain. If you know, you know. Where we may then see some strength on XRP BTC and ideally XRP USD once more. And of course, the comment here, Gandalf's grave, that is a reference to Lord of the Rings, a movie also known as Dork Quest. Here's a post from chart analyst Zoom. XRP BTC lost blue support. So he was looking at this as well. He says, next up, gold support, so it's at a slightly lower level. I'm fairly certain that's where XRP BTC will bottom out, and this also aligns well with Bitcoin having its final move up and alts taking the throne after. And so short-term price action like this does not mean that the party's over. This is normal in crypto. There's nothing weird. Nothing on a higher time frame is structurally broken, which is what I'm getting at since the beginning of this video. I just want that to be a clear and important takeaway. Nothing's broken here. It's just a red day in the market. They happen. Even at the end of a bull phase, which is close to where we are now. Here's a post from ChartNerd. It says, XRP has imminent support below in the $2.60 range, but if it sweeps below, being above $2.20, 55 WEMA, would still signal the push towards $5 in this bull flag structure, nothing but opportunity. And so he's saying even if it goes lower, and that's an if, you're still going to rocket higher. Again, it doesn't break higher time frame structure. Out of all of the chart analysts that I follow, and it's many of them, all the ones that chart XRP are not concerned about anything that's unfolding right now, so it doesn't make sense to be worrying about this stuff. Here's a post from chart analyst Crypto Wizard. XRP USD on the screen here says, when XRP moves, the breakout is coming sooner than you think. XRP has been trading sideways for 75 days in a triangle. The range is getting tighter. A breakout above $3.05 can trigger a rally to the key $3.65 level. XRP always rewards the patient. Yeah, and that's what markets do in general. Certainly true of XRP. And yeah, you really got to wait here because of the SEC attack. We've had to wait longer than anybody else in crypto. Okay, but that's just life. We can't control that. But it's true. That's why I keep insisting those who wait, those who wait are the ones who get rewarded. And so I still firmly believe the best is yet ahead, and we'll see what happens here. But I think it's going to happen sooner than later. Here's a post from chart analyst Jackus. He says, I think there is a more than decent chance we are going to see a similar type of outcome on XRP as we saw on Binance Coin, BNB. The 3 tap into parabola breakout. So I'm asking again, at what point will people see XRP not distributing but reaccumulating? And do you think they managed to flip in time or cope all the way up? In the past cycle, it was the latter. In my opinion, XRP at greater than $10 ain't out of the question. Obviously, that outcome might not play straight tomorrow. Give the price room to wiggle. And so you could have been down on Binance Coin. That's the bottom chart. XRP's up top here. You can be like, it's so slow, and oh my God, the opportunity cost. There's other coins that have gone. But then it just goes. And either you have exposure when that happens or you don't, which is why it makes sense to behave like an adult when you invest in crypto. You don't control when the market goes, but either you have exposure when it inevitably happens or you don't. And XRP is a clear winner in the crypto space. I just can't imagine tinkering with my XRP position, getting cute with stuff, getting in and out because of, I think I know when XRP is going to go. Like, I don't do that stuff. That's ridiculous. People lose tremendous life-changing wealth opportunities by behaving like that. Here's a post from Mikey Bull Crypto. Said, many are not ready for the massive rally that is coming for XRP. Patience, the fun is about to start. And so again, he hasn't lost the optimism. This is just from yesterday. Like, nothing's changed though. It's still going to rally higher, okay? Here's a post from the great Matsby. This is from this evening, 5:35 p.m., so less than 2 hours ago. He says, XRP nailed the baseline as support, $2.78, for the first time since July, since the baseline is finally upward sloping as well. This could be enough to send XRP into launch mode soon. So as you can see, these analysts who have been right about XRP thus far, they think number go up from here. There is no fear. So perhaps indeed this is the final shakeout. Maybe the market goes a little bit lower. I don't pretend to know. But there's a lot of optimism here from reputable chart analysts, and I think it's well placed. This is not a time to be fearful. It's a time to be excited. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.